Hi, welcome to Sacred Enzyme. I'm Stacy, and welcome back for part 3 of my talk on Amilius and the excerpts that are about Amilius in the Lives of Edgar Casey, written by W.H. Church. And this third part that I want to get into is about how Amilius is born as the Son of Man. And so I'm going to read this passage that goes along with this, and then we're going to talk about it because this is really interesting. Okay, it says, despite the efforts of the children of the Law of One, the Atlantean race and culture seem doomed to eventual self-extinction through the increasingly destructive activities of the sons of Belial. Great technological advancements, which had gradually supplanted the declining spiritual power of the race, only led to worse abuses. So the more technology that they were learning, they were abusing it. It just became worse and worse and worse. It just became like a festering sore. So first there was the mighty crystal, whose prisms could gather and harness the incredible energies in the rays from far off Arcturus. Remember the star Arcturus and the Arcturian race? They talk about the Arcturian race. Well, apparently they were getting crystal electricity or technology that was being radiated through an Arcturian star onto the planet. That's the way that I understand it. So it says that first there was a mighty crystal whose prisms could gather and harness the incredible energies in rays from far off Arcturus, or the sun of our own little solar system, originally under the direct control of the priest and priestess of the Law of One. So originally they had control of this crystal technology, but I think they ended up losing it. Okay, so that control was gradually subverted by the sons of Belial. So Belial, the group, was infiltrating from the inside. So this is what happened. It poisoned from within. This was the undoing. So lasers and other destructive forces were also unleashed, as they talked about it in another reading. And that was one thing that I wanted to mention, is that these lasers and things were put on top of, like, what I think are a lot of these old tower structures. Like, there's a city in Italy that has tons and tons of these towers. And at one time there's pictures of drawings of the city of towers. And these towers were, most of them were torn down. But these towers like this, they could have had lasers on top of them. Just like lighthouses and things like that have been around for, a long, long time. You'll see these really old lighthouses, and you can tell the top's been redone, that they've changed out the light. But those could have been used for laser technology. You don't know. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know the truth really about anything. So anyway, it says that they were using lasers and other destructive forces, and it says that thrown off will be returned, not necessarily in the same form, but with a similar degree of destructiveness, for that's the spiritual law. So you're reaping what you sow. So when you behave bad in a life, your next life, you're just bad, I guess. This way that I'm seeing it is that they just kept doing bad stuff, and every time that they came back or were born again, they were worse, or that they're enduring their karmic law of the karmic rule of what you project out, you get back. So maybe it has something to do with karma. So it says, yet the wayward Atlanteans paid scant heed to any law. So they didn't care. They didn't care. They were so caught up in their own desires that they didn't even care. Yet the wayward Atlanteans paid scant heed to any law. The first of the eruptions, breaking up the proud continent into a series of islands, did not deter those who acknowledged no power but their own. Nor did the second cataclysmic upheaval served to chastise them. So not only one time, but twice, that it affected the frequency and it messed up the planet. So the realization came to Amilius that he was going to have to do something. So he decides that he needs to create like a second creation, because the first creation was a mess. And in between the second creation of Adam and the first creation is where you have all these hybrid animals, because these beings were just projecting all kind of stuff. So you have these unicorns and mermaids and satyrs, and you have all this stuff. You have all these things that are these demigod, mythical type creature human things. This is the time period that they came out in. They came out in between the first projection of Amilius and then the second projection, which was Adam, which when he decided that in his second creation that this was going to have to be the Son of Man. It would have to be the Son of Man. It wouldn't be the Son of God. He was already the Son of God. So he's going to incarnate again and come back as Adam. So he says, bringing into the earth a flesh form entity, but out of pure origins, who would arise from the impending ruins of Atlantis and propagate itself from its own kind, repopulating and replenishing the flood, an earthquake-ravaged planet over which it would be given dominion. His name would be Adam or Adama, meaning the red earth. As a prelude to Adamic man's appearance, however, there were to be forerunners who would prepare the way. So it says, for the advent of the souls of men to be brought to their relationship with God. Now, listen very closely, because this is where we're going to get into these nymphs and this Medea and these early medicinal women of early times, these maidens that were, they were using these oracles, and why these oracles were established originally. You had these androgynous beings in the beginning, and it says that preparations were made for the event of the souls of men to be brought to their relationship with God, because they were dematerialized. And so he's leaving his realm as the Son of God, as the Son of the indisputable absolute creator. So Amilius has decided to give up this role and sacrifice his role, because once he checks out of this role, he's lost his connection, okay? So he's sacrificing himself for the salvation of mankind. Where have we heard about those sacrifices, right? Sounds like we got some literature that's been hijacked. You remember that old Son of Man, Son of God, for the salvation and no more sacrifices and all that stuff, and being sacrificed on the cross, and you know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, well, this is how this whole Jesus thing comes in here. Okay, so it says that he had, when he left his role as the firstborn and wanted to become the secondborn to try to save us from ourselves, because we just screwed up big time, and he realized that he was the first one. He started it. I mean, he messed up. He made a mistake. And just like Sophia, it was an unintended mistake. This is where you get the story of the Pistis Sophia from. Sophia had unintentionally did it. She made this creation that kind of went into an abomination, and so this is why we have the Christ and the soul, and we have to merge them back together in order to go back to the absolute, where we came from, where our souls came from. So we got to stop this monkeying around stuff, and we got to do what we're supposed to be here for. We're supposed to bring it all back together. This is why Adama came. Adama. A on the end usually means a feminine version, right? So didn't they pull the rib out of Adam to make Eve? Isn't that the way it went? So Adam was androgynous. So it says that as a prelude to Adamic's appearance, however, there were ways to be forerunners. The preparations were made for the event of the souls of men to be brought to the relationship with God, that as we await the event of a new age and a new race in the earth, a forerunner would be of the approaching new order, And so under the direction of Amilius, those forerunner souls were androgynous beings. Even as the soul's entities in their first influx had been, they nevertheless differed from their ancient predecessors, of whom some were themselves, in fact, now returning by being flesh form entities. So even the original form of those androgynous gods that came into the first existence, those people were coming back in the flesh bodies too. So because, you know, some of these people were the children of the light. So they're light bringers. They're the children of Lucifer. They are the children of Amilius. So they're coming back to bring the light, to lead the way, right? This is the time of the lily we're in right now. We're in the time of the lily. So it says that in order for him to do that, he had to select channelers, trans-channelers. And so this is how you get your nymphs that were in the oracles. And you get into this whole Orphic thing with these oracles, and you have these oracles in Delphi, and the oracles, they communicated. They were the ones that were still communicating with Amilius. That's why the oracles were always consulted. So it says that these oracles, you know, that all this ended up, I'm guessing, being hijacked too, because it was supposed to be, so his representatives had to adhere to the law, right? The law of one, counseling people everywhere in the ways of peace and brotherhood, as opposed to the more disruptive and violent solutions to their problems. It was all part of the divine plan emerging so that the coming Adamic age could be safely ushered in. And so as Azapha entered, Azapha. And so we'll talk about Azapha in the next episode. But in the meantime, we're going to talk more about Amilius. So Amilius, he foresaw another necessity in his unfolding plan for the salvation of humanity. And his self-sacrifice, he never wavered. And so he was going to enter into one of the 5 proposed prototypes for the new flesh-formed race. And so he chose to come as Adam, the Son of Man, entering his own creation a second time, but now as a fleshly projection of himself, Amilius, the upper Adam. So Adam is still connected to upper Adam, right? So this is our conscious and our subconscious. So we're still connected to our subconscious. Okay, though androgynous and without an earthly father or mother, he would be immortal and subject to mortal limitations. So we have Adam coming from Amilius and being from a virgin, obviously, because he had no mother or father, right? That way he was mind, light, and the word, so he became flesh. So now we have the mind, we have the light, and we have the word. So we have the vagal nerve, definitely, because all vibration goes through the nerve system, right? We have the light, which goes through the pineal gland, which we got the pine cone, right? And all these depictions. We have a Dionysus, Dio, which is God, Gnosis, which is knowledge, and Dionysus comes from Zeus. And so Zeus is God, right? And Gaia, which is earth. So, I mean, there's so many references to this that we just got to put it all together. So anyway, he decided that he was going to be Adam. Amilius was going to be the Adam, the earthly Adam, to come back and save us. So he put himself in a self-imposed prison. So it said that it's interesting. So it's saying here basically that Adam came from Amilius, and it was the same person. And so we're going to go on to part 4 tomorrow. I've done enough for today, and tomorrow we are going to talk about the next character in this saga. of creation, Amilius, and the readings from Edgar Cayce, the great and legendary sleeping prophet. So when you tune in, I'll be here. And remember, we're living in the past, present, and the future all at the same time. So when you tune into me, I'll be here. And I thank you for spending 15 minutes of your time with me on Sacred Enzyme. Have a good evening. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.